Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to be here just to share some very important information. As you know, every year we observe International Women's Day on the 8th of March. And this year is no exception, except we come with a new theme. The theme for International Women's Day 2025 is For All Women and Girls, Rights, Equality, and Empowerment. And this year also marks 30 years since we had the Beijing Platform for Action. That was the fourth World Conference for Women, the United Nations conference that was held in Beijing, China, in 1995. And I was part of the delegation that went to that fourth World Conference. And it was this document that came out of this conference that laid the platform globally for advancement and promotion of equality between men and women all over the world. And St. Lucia has made great strides in advancing equality between men and women. There is still room for improvement. However, we are doing a documentary this year to highlight what St. Lucia has done in terms of its efforts to advance the cause of women and how we have achieved certain levels of equality in the workplace, in skills development, in education, in health, just name it. Women are actually taking their rightful places in the society. We have partnered with Lady Lynn, who will be having a big show, and this is done in collaboration with the Department of Gender, and she's doing one of her legacy shows, and the other Calypsonians will celebrate with her. And that is a new feature we are bringing in for the observance of International Women's Week of activities. And we have Women Empowerment Celebration. And in that empowerment celebration, we are bringing men into the activity where we see how men actually assist women to improve themselves, to gain equality. Because women cannot do it on their own without the support of men. And therefore, we have to see the collaboration between men and women and how men support women on International Women's Day. We also speak to Women in Leadership Seminar, and the Department of Gender is one department of government that has been almost self-sufficient in terms of raising grant funds to implement programs for the advancement of gender equality in St. Lucia. When you look at the government's budget, government will provide support for office space and for staff. But when it comes to the activities, we get a lot of fundings from the Canadians, from the United Nations, from the French government. And these agencies actually contribute millions of dollars in developing a lot of programs. We get support from the Taiwanese. And for the last year, we got contribution to the tune of over $4 million to do training programs, skills development, advancement, women in agriculture, and a whole range of activities. So I need to commend the Department of Gender Affairs for taking the initiative to prepare project proposals and to secure funding to advance gender equality in St. Lucia. So I look forward to a big celebration this year, and we expect the men to join in the celebration so that we can see how women can play a critical role in the development of St. Lucia. One of the milestones we have is when we enacted the domestic violence bill in 2022. And to date, we have seen quite a few developments coming out of this legislation. We are proud to speak of this legislation as one of the most progressive legislation in the Caribbean. And the other Caribbean islands speaks to it. And even at the United Nations level, we speak to that. So we look forward to seeing that documentary when it will be ready later this year. And you would actually see how much we have achieved in advancing the cause of women. While we speak about advancing the cause of women, we also have very serious concern about our men in the society, because what we are seeing is that with the heavy emphasis on women, it is actually causing some level of marginalization for men. And therefore, we have to create programs where we engage our young men, our young boys, in preparing themselves to take their rightful places in society. I think when I speak of taking their rightful places, I am not happy to see the number of young men, talented young men with a lot of energy and skills sitting at the Borderley Correctional Facility. I think they have to find themselves in a better place to contribute to national development. And when we speak of gender equality, we speak on the advancement of women, we have to see how do we give a space for our young men in the society. So let us see how we promote rights, how we advance equality, and how we empower women so that they can support, especially our young men who are falling by the wayside.
What's the response to protests? Especially in light of the murder of a lad and the lad. We had another one like on Friday of another woman. What they're saying is that you are not saying anything, you are quiet. So what's your response to them?
Okay, I think I responded to that, maybe not in the forum where it was said that I was silent. I did indicate that we need to engage in greater education program so that women, it is alleged that there were some threats and the victims were aware of the threats. But what apparently happened is that they did not know where to turn. They were not aware of who could have been of support to them. And in the absence of that information, they must have kept it to themselves and thought it would be all safe. And this is something I think the gender department and other agencies need to go out there and be a little more vocal to tell women what they have to do in certain situations so that they can protect themselves. And even while people are making statements, it is still alleged as to what would have led to the cause of the death of the two young women. That is after the fact. But before the fact, who knew what the situation was and how we could assist? That was unknown to the public, to me as minister with responsibility for gender. So therefore, the argument remains we need to educate both men and women as to what can I do if I am feeling threatened by anybody for whatever reason. And the issue of making a statement, I believe there is need for a statement. But again, if I am promoting gender equality, the question will be asked, why are you making a statement when a woman is murdered and you have not made a statement when a man is murdered? So we have to make statements on all issues, whether it's a man and whether it's a woman. But we also have the issue of gender-based violence, where women are murdered because they are women. They are targeted because they are women. This is another area that we have to focus on, that you must not kill somebody. You must not destroy somebody's life because of who they are. And there is no need about the statement. My position is that we need to take action. It's not just making a statement, but it is to take action. And the action is that we need to ensure that we put mechanisms in place to protect all men and women in St. Lucia from no matter what form of violence.
Speaking of mechanisms, I want to know the update on the home for battered women in VG. I think it was closed a couple of years ago for renovation. Do you know what's the status of this place?
The home for battered women in
VG.
VG? Well, we have the Women's Support Center, which is not known to the public. We do not disclose where it is. So I'm surprised that you said it's in VG.
I don't know. It was a secret. Sorry, I was
Okay.
asking.
No, because it is a protective and a safe place for women who are involved in domestic violence issues, then it is not made public. Nobody should know where it is.
But is it available? Can women go there right now?
Um,
It was closed for.
But they are still receiving the counseling, because when I spoke to the director, they still get in touch with the victims. They give them the proper guidance. And based on, we have just completed a review of the Women's Support Center to determine the status of that entity, because many people thought it was a government agency, whereas government gives support to help the agency function, but it is not a government entity. So it is supposed to be run by a statutory board, and then they actually manage the entity by itself. So now we are going to table this report in cabinet, and government will take a position as to what is the status of this entity. But right now they are actually engaging persons virtually in terms of giving them the assistance, and we are getting ready to do the necessary renovation, establish the status of the entity so that it can get back functioning. We also have the crisis center, which government, they have just established a new board, and they have written to the Department of Gender, indicating that they have to vacate the location where they are. And we are actually trying to secure additional funding from government to give them the support. But we are waiting for the new board to put their programs in place so that we can give that entity a new outlook when they resume their operations in the new location where they will be. However, in the meantime, the Department of Gender will be giving them some space, at least to deal with the clients that come in while we establish a new location for them.
Question. You mentioned the Domestic Violence Act. Where's the PR, basically? Because you have a lot of people saying, moi pas à côté pour moi aller, etc. Is enough PR given nationally and at the same time at a community level for people who really need that kind of information? Is it being done? Why you say the act is there? But do they know? Because a lot of people tell you, I do not know. So is enough PR being given through the women, both the women and the men out there?
Okay, well, if you are aware, the government, the Prime Minister actually restructured the ministry that was once the Ministry of the Public Service, Home Affairs, Labor and Gender Affairs. And that ministry, which fell under my portfolio, right now carries 4 permanent secretaries. And the Prime Minister has national security, which deals with the police, the marine, immigration and citizenship. And we have Ministry of Home Affairs under Minister Honorable Jeremiah Norbert, who deals with borderly, the fire service, probation and parole, and persons with disability and crime prevention. And then we have public service. Public service has its own permanent secretary, and then labor and gender has a new permanent secretary in the person of Mrs. Sheila Imbert. And the Prime Minister deliberately did that restructuring so that labor and gender could get a little more attention. And with that new entity, new organization, the Department of Labor and Gender has established their website, they have established their Facebook, and now they are more out there trying to educate persons. Because if you know, we had the opening of an office for the Labor Tribunal and the Minimum Wage Commission, and they are actually educating people now on the Labor Act. There are people that don't know much about the Labor Act, and therefore they are also promoting the issue of gender. So both gender and labor now are brought into the fold. So the PR is actually picking up now for these 2 departments.
Okay. My second question to you is, sometimes we see in the domestic violence, women basically coming to say, I'm being battered, right? I am being battered. Yes, I'm being battered. But at the same time, the police now will take that report in the next week. The one will say, me, I've been in my month to quarter, and she drops it. You just wasted the police time. Now the second week now, she comes in, and then she ball out again. My man beating me again. What is there within the act now for us to deal with that kind of that kind of stuff. Because yes, women getting battered, yes, but the man continue doing it, and the woman now scared now, and she said, "Me, I drop in the charges." What happens? What happens to that woman? Next thing you hear, then she becomes a statistic. What do we do? And then the police will tell you, "Me, I getting involved in that from Lakalaji Kisla." What do we do?
Okay, now the new legislation, if you are familiar with it, speaks to that exact situation that you spoke about. It actually empowers persons to report domestic violence issues. Before, it was only the victim who could report. Now, any bystander or any person who sees or knows of the incident can report the matter to the police. And the legislation also speaks to the woman or the victim does not have the right to withdraw the case. You cannot withdraw the case. You cannot waste the police time starting a case and later you say you are not coming and you are not appearing. They will proceed with the case. And we have also engaged in training for the police officers on how to deal with domestic violence issues. They did not know how to handle. They handle all cases as a criminal matter. But when it is domestic violence, a domestic violence incident, they have to document it differently to just a regular crime matter. And in that case, we have done training for the police officers on how to handle domestic violence matters. They have to document it in terms of data. So we have disaggregated data. There will be a number of criminal matters that appear to the police. The police will deal with them. However, they know which ones that are domestic violence and those that are just regular criminal matters. So we have engaged in that training. We have done training for magistrates so that they can understand how to interpret the law and to implement the law. And right now we are in the process of developing regulations for the act so that people know exactly how things are done, when, where, and in what form.
Questions have risen about the manner in which certain cases are handled, especially with domestic abuse cases, rape cases. Recently, we saw that. Is there anything in place for witness protection?
Well, they are working, well, that will deal with the judicial section. But what they have been asking for is how do you bring the witness so that the defendant and the other parties do not identify the person, because you know you are going to put the person at risk. When we deal with witness protection, based on the cases that have been drawn to my attention, it is a very expensive exercise to protect these witnesses. There are cases where we have to send these people overseas. Now, when we send these people overseas, how do we bring them back to be a witness in the case? That is a challenge. We have to pay airfare, we have to pay maintenance fee for wherever the person is to feed the person for as long as the person is there under protection. So these are some of the issues that we have to face. It's a very expensive exercise. Now, some people say, I feel threatened, I feel I'm a witness to a case and I need protection. Now, the police may say, no, according to the case, they don't see you as somebody who is threatened and at risk. Now we have to take the guidance from the police. You cannot just come and declare that I feel I'm a witness and I need protection. And in that case, government has a certain budgetary allocation for witness protection. However, it can only accommodate so much. And therefore, in some cases, I know of cases where people had to go overseas for them to feel safe. They were not feeling safe in St. Lucia. And you cannot have these people in hiding for the rest of their lives. Sometimes these cases drag into court for a very long time. And therefore, how do we handle these expenses in keeping people? But they are saying there are places, we are looking at systems that exist regionally and see how we can bring a witness forward without the other parties identifying who that person. We have to protect that person so they don't see that you are actually coming in forward. Then I think we can utilize technology to assist us where you don't have to appear in person, but you can be over the camera at a distance and become a witness in a case. So these are areas that we are exploring. But it is a very expensive exercise, and we have done it, but maybe not to the full extent in terms of what the budget can afford.
So for women, when you speak of cases where they are at risk and in danger, what do you recommend that they do?
In the case of domestic violence, that is where we had the Women's Support Center. There are cases where they go to the crisis center. They get guidance, they get counseling, and they get advice on what they should do. As the minister, I cannot disclose here. It depends on the case, and you deal with case by case basis. The scenario changes as you move from case to case, but there are facilities in place to guide women. I think there are cases where women do not take advantage of these facilities, and therefore they end up being victim because they didn't know that they could go for counseling and advice on how to handle the situation. They believe they can just keep it secret and maybe just don't talk about it and it will go away. But now we have to encourage women to come out and go to the right sources for them to report their cases. Now we also establish a one-stop center at the Department of Gender, and that also deals with incidents of violence against women. And this project is funded by the Caribbean Development Bank. We are about to start that project so people can come in and get counseling and advice on how to handle the situation.
Is it free of charge?
Yes, it is a government service. Yeah.
Yes, Madam Minister. We have the gender equality bill, gender violence, also the domestic violence bill. But dating back 10 to 15 years ago, Women's Day, we used to have these posters with all these women, young girls who've been raped, killed. Mm-hmm. How with all these programs in place, how much has it assisted the police? How satisfied is the department with the police bringing fruition to a lot of these cases? Because a lot of these cases have remained unresolved. I know all, but the judges and this, Trisha Octave, there are so many names that have been left hanging, and people are asking for some level of fruition to be brought to these cases. Are you aware that there are still some unsolved cases that really needs to be dealt with?
Well, I'm pretty much aware that there are a lot of cases that have not been resolved. And it is one where people have to understand the different branches of government. We are part of the executive as ministers, the cabinet, the parliament. You have the legislature, and then you have the judiciary. Now, when a matter is submitted to the police and it goes to the lawyers, the government cannot tell the lawyers what to do in a case. We are not involved in the investigation. And that is the challenge that we have, that many cases do not move forward as fast as we would like because we have no control over what magistrates and judges and lawyers do. That is in their jurisdiction. And I feel the pain of families who have lost their loved ones and not getting justice. It is one where we feel the wheel of justice is a little too slow. There is a lot more that could be done. And maybe we would need to have legislation to see what can be done to expedite the process. But I'm fully aware that there are some cases that have not been resolved.
Okay, and fine. Would you say that the domestic violence bill, in some way gives the police, the law enforcement a little more leeway in tackling these matters?
Well, they are a little more thorough in their investigation. The legislation actually explains to the policemen how to document the information, how to document the evidence, so that when that is submitted to the lawyer, to the magistrate, they would have sufficient information to digest, to assess in order to make a decision. Because many times some cases do not go forward because the reporting is lacking. They do not have adequate information. The investigation was weak, and therefore the judges and the lawyers cannot act on that. It's not enough to convict somebody or to charge somebody or to sentence somebody.
Question, changing gears a little bit. Has the government taken a position on the sex offenders registry? We see that happening in the States. We have it both male and female being molested, and those people walk the streets. You may hear a case today, and in 2 years, that person comes back and he does. It's like a recurring decimal within our society, where even when it comes to the males, you see it happens all the time. You understand? You hear them 2 years pass, you hear nothing about them, and next you hear him committing that same vibe again. It's also for our young girls where you see they get abused and then it goes down the drain and then it reoccurs again. So is the government doing anything about that when it comes to sex offenders? Have that registry so within the communities or even on TV that we can know, hey, but there is a sex offender, we don't want that man in our community. Or we don't want him or her in the community.
Okay, while you zero on sex offenders, the government has taken a policy decision to digitize a lot of the information that we have, not just about sex offenders, but generally government data. And what we find is that our data collection was very much of what we call obsolete type. And therefore, with modern technology, we are able to capture a lot more information. And as a result, government through DigiGov is actually digitizing a lot of government information. And I am hoping that the registry for sex offenders will find itself within that grouping so that everybody's information will be within the system and therefore you can pull it out. As to whether you make that information public is one that you have to decide because there are other legislation or other issues that will come up in terms of, and you will remember, it is said that not because somebody is in prison that all their rights are taken. They have their rights too. And therefore, you have to look at what new legislation will be put in place to protect the government or the persons who will release that information in the public. So you don't see a list of John James, Peter, John, whatever, all these over. The person can also challenge it if you do not have legislation to protect the law and the government from doing this. Okay? So they tell you even though somebody is in prison and sentenced, they too have rights. And Amnesty and all these other international agencies will come hard on St. Lucia for not protecting the rights of these people, even if it is alleged that they are sex offenders.
But other countries have registries,
Right, but he was asking that we publish it and make it known so that everybody knows this person and so on. That person could be subject to harassment, intimidation, and even flogging and beating or threatened. And therefore, they tell you, why do you have to do that too? Because at one time, when people were sentenced to bodily, and when they were released from bodily, nobody wanted to accept these people, that they were once an inmate in a correctional facility, and therefore, when they come back in the society, they are not accepted. But they don't understand that this person went through a rehabilitation process, and that person might be in a better position now to contribute to national development. But the stigma that is attached to it actually creates a kind of it creates the kind of thinking that this person is an undesirable person in the society.
But what's your position, though, on this being publicized?
I think it has to be made available to relevant agencies and maybe not in a newspaper or something where you highlight and show the person's faces and so on. But I believe it is important data for people to do background checks on persons so that they can protect others from or prevent others from being victims of possible sex offenders.
Okay. Just wanted to get your take as the Labour Minister, the Minister for Public Service as well. We see the negotiations having been for the trienniums being completed for the organizations that are under the TUF. However, it's a bit prolonged now for the police and also the daily paid workers. Do you have any concerns about this, that we're not seeing a conclusion to this to the negotiations, especially the police who seem very adamant about getting what they have proposed? And yeah, I think right now also you're saying that we don't have any police that are actually active, falling sick. So
okay. I am fully aware, and the matter is under discussion. It is unfortunate that the police went public on their negotiations before it's completed. because there are many things the government could have said about negotiations. There are many things that I, as minister with responsibility for labor and the public service, could have said. But we respect the negotiation process, and unless there is deadlock between two parties where they cannot move forward from where they are, you do not go public with the matter because they are in dialogue, they are in negotiations. So I think the police have made an out on the matter by going public on what the issues are, because government too could go public and say what the issues are. But we respect the negotiating process. We allow the government negotiating team to engage the police. And when they have reached a point where they cannot move from where they are, then the matter goes for mediation. And we can see how we can move it from there. But unless it is a deadlock, we do not discuss that in public.
But the two, well, the National Workers Union and the police workers, which should have both, I guess, call out the government for what it said that was disrespect. First, when the announcement was made by the Prime Minister that all unions had accepted, well, had concluded their negotiations with the GMT, and secondly, his recent announcement about the back pay being given also to the police and the daily paid workers. So they are claiming disrespect on your part, on the government's part.
Mhm.
Is this a norm with in negotiations where negotiations haven't been concluded that such an action would be taken by the government?
Okay. The government negotiating team is the one that has to let government know when there is a deadlock in the negotiations. And as far as I'm concerned, from what I have heard, they have not reached a deadlock. So there is still dialogue between the government negotiating team and the other unions that are negotiating. The police has opted not to negotiate together with the Trade Union Federation. That was their choice. The Borderley Correctional Facility did not negotiate together with the Trade Union Federation, but they have since accepted. So there are issues the police have. They have gone public with it. I don't want to repeat what they have said. I would prefer to take my guidance from the negotiating team and the Prime Minister, who is the one who has to release money. He knows how much he can release, and I do not want to make any pronouncement out of turn. But I'm saying I respect the negotiating process, and we are waiting the government negotiating team to inform the government that we cannot move forward because there is a deadlock, whether it's between police and National Workers Union, and therefore government has to take it from there. That is where we will step in.
We will now hear from Honorable Emma Hippolyte, Minister for Commerce, Manufacturing, Business Development, Cooperatives, and Consumer Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Press Secretary. Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity. I'm going to speak on just two things briefly. The first one is just to remind the public that the Ministry of Commerce would be opening its Vieux-Fort office on Wednesday this week. The official ceremony starts at 11. And after that, we will be opening to serving from the following day the public in the South. So again, I want to thank the business community out there for their patience, and I'm really hoping that the relief that we bring to them, that the customer service, and just reminding them that we made a commitment and that we are living up to that commitment. The South is very important to us, and we are doing this there, and we're hoping we can do other things in the not too distant future. The second announcement, it relates to cannabis. The Regulated Substance Authority, which is the authority that now has the responsibility for the introduction of the cannabis and hemp industry. They are starting the public consultation on Wednesday. Yes, yes. So I'm just reading the schedules there. It starts in Soufrière on Wednesday the 26th, and that's at the Cool Breeze Conference Room at 6 p.m. Okay, so that is a discussion on the cannabis industry. We have a draft bill, and we are going to discuss this draft bill. The consultation commences on Wednesday, the 26th, in Soufrière at the Cool Breeze Conference Room at 6 p.m. Then this is followed in Dennery on the 27th, on Thursday, the 27th. That is at Chateau Heritage, and that is also at 6 p.m. Then the next consultation is in Grosley, and it is on Tuesday, the 4th of March, and that is at 6 p.m. And that is at the Grosley Human Resource Development Center. Then we go down on Wednesday, the 5th of March, to Viewfort, and that will be at our Ministry of Commerce, and I think that's at Clark Street. There's a top floor there, 6 p.m. Then on Thursday, the 6th, we move to Babono, and it's at the Babono Human Resource Center, 6 p.m. Then Tuesday, the 11th of March, we move on to Ansley, and that is at the Parish Hall in Ansley at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 11th. And we then have the Castries at the Castries City Council on Wednesday, the 12th of March. Again, 6 p.m. So we really want to take this moment to invite all of St. Lucia to these various consultations. The introduction of a cannabis industry is very critical for us as a country, and we really want to give the public an opportunity to have a conversation, discuss, and everything else. In addition to these consultations, we are also going to have some targeted groups, principals, students, so that we have all the core sectors together. So, yes, you have a question?
I'm not really speaking on the cannabis today, but I'm speaking of our manufacturers, both medium and small. I think most of them will tell me there are problems with fixing the problems, not only for our local, but also for our regional producers. Where I spoke to Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, all of them are saying the same thing from your industry. We do have a lot to export, but they seem to be making a noise that the freight seems to be a big cost and it raises the price of the freight also. So
The issue.
What they were saying is that are there any talks within the government of St. Lucia, basically regionally, to make sure that our manufacturers locally can they have basically something like RIAC, but not with air freight, but with the sea, with Express Diesel under this new company. It's a German company. They were asking, can that be done, or other government spoke with other people within those areas so that we can export where it will be easier for our local manufacturers?
Well, the issue of shipping, whether it's regional or international, is now a big challenge for us in the region, and not only in the region, throughout the world. But being very specific to the question that you asked, is we've had conversation. There are various private sector bodies and investors that have started talking to us about providing connectivity, I would call it that, within the region. But we have to, and again, because it's private sector, We can only facilitate that investment because it's not something that government can pour money into. We can cause it to happen. I know just about over a year ago, some African people actually came looking at it. Since then, I know we had the whole issue of the French companies improving their services. So the feedback is critical for us. Our manufacturers have to tell us that whatever now exists is still not working. Is still not working. You're right. We had Express des Îles making some of the rounds, and sometimes you have the case of St. Vincent where you have private scooters that you can lease and rent. The manufacturers as well need to be able to come together because, and that is why you have the various bodies, the SLISBERS, the Manufacturers Association, the Chamber of Commerce. Most times what you need and what is not happening is enough collaboration among the parties. For example, if we know, if all of the bodies come together and agree to hire a boat to go from St. Lucia to, for example, we have a lot of our agricultural products get to the Virgin Islands, for example, but you then have to make private arrangements. So I am meeting the various bodies every quarter. I've not met them this year. That is now on the cards to do. So when we meet, I'll get an update and see how best we can facilitate it.
What were your thoughts on the business expo held in Beaufort?
Well, I should ask you. I organize it. So
I mean, in terms of the products you saw, the booths you saw, were you impressed by what was on
yes,
display?
I was. We had just under 100 small businesses displaying their ware. I was very impressed with the quality. Some very new products came in, and our agency, Export St. Lucia, who actually led that particular exhibition, has identified certain persons that we have to work with. We had quite a few of our members who were beneficiaries of our MSME loan program. I was happy to see that. When I went around, there were lots of exhibitors who had not benefited from the MSME loan program. So we also had staff from the Ministry of Commerce working with them to cause them to prepare for the food calling. So all in all, I was very pleased with it.
Was the location a good choice?
Well, I was not the one who chose the location.
But in your opinion,
I felt we could have had more space, especially in Beaufort where there is space, other spaces. Maybe there might have been a reason why the authorities in Beaufort decided to use the Beaufort Square because it's more central. But if Beaufort had space, we could have, maybe if we had another location, maybe you could have accommodated some more manufacturers.
Question. Speaking to someone from Antigua on that same expo, but they're saying that we have a lot of goods in solution, but probably not enough is being done to, I guess, to market our goods because she was so surprised by what we have down here, and she said, yeah, but it's not enough within the islands because I believe there was this exhibition going right from the car, not enough is being done on Central. That's what she said to me. Enough is not being done. Do you feel like, well, obviously we need more. Do you feel in your view that more should be done to sell our goods basically, especially with our local manufacturers?
Well, there are a lot of things that are happening. Government is giving assistance to the private sector. And that's what I was saying in terms of even the associations, they need strengthening. And the support we have provided so far within the ministry is to individuals, persons who have a product to manufacture. But sometimes when I sit, I believe as well that there is need to provide some assistance to the associations themselves in terms of improving the services they provide to their members, because government will provide this exhibition. We have the St. Lucia Taiwan exhibition, and then we now have the National Expo. These are the two exhibitions that we have. At one point, we did have an exhibition that was open to the region. I remember the French people came in. But based on what you're saying, if we have a similar exhibition around the OECS or CARICOM, then our exhibitors can move around, but they need the support to do that. Yeah. But again, is as well, we try to do some online, a lot more online marketing. What we have to do, maybe how we boost it, and it's a work in progress.
Yes, Madam Minister. Sometime last year, we called the Caribbean Symposium, Forum on Cannabis, and there were some key speakers. You know, what is the progress with this movement? And now that you have a public discussion, will more information be available to the public in terms of, you know, what is the basis for this cannabis industry?
Well, you're right, we had the Caribbean Symposium. That would have, the result of this would have impacted the draft cannabis bill that you now have before you. And what we have done as well is we have invited our regional and international stakeholders, we call them, because we do collaborate, to give us feedback on the piece of legislation that we have as well. We have quite a bit of work we've done with Barbados in one of the symposium outside of St. Lucia that we attended. So we did a lot of work with St. Vincent as well. You know, I visited some time ago to see what was happening on the ground. We got some assistance from Canada. So now is how we get feedback from all those persons. That is what's in the bill now. We've sent the draft bill back out to them, and we are now want to focus on the stakeholders, our local stakeholders. How do they see this instrument and this industry impacting them? Does the bill cover all the areas that they would want it to cover? That is why we are going into that type of open conversation. We are not just putting the bill there, we are going into the communities to make it easy and allow persons to focus. So I'm really hoping that we can share that flyer far and wide so that persons pay attention. So Sufred, this Wednesday is your turn.
And you know, I remember also wanted to embrace the small planters, the small retailers.
Yes.
So they would have a voice. So a lot of this information will be given out.
Well, yes, there's provision in the bill for them, but they have to come out and say what is there. We are happy with it. If there are any changes, so I'm really calling on the Rastafarian movement as well for them to attend the various consultations that we're having around the island.
Any questions? That's it.
Yeah, all good. And who's covering? Is he? Yeah, who's covering? Desmond Collymore. Desmond Collymore.
Minister, you have to have
Well, Desmond Collymore
Providing transport.
You provide us with transport, we can.
Or
Yeah.
OPM can send us some content.
Minister, are you providing transport?
No, I don't think that's one of the things. Huh? The media people have the connection. When things happen in the south, how we all get it?
Okay, so either we don't get
I think
You'll get it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No, but I think you please give it legs. I think you have the dates, but I can share the flyer so you have the yeah.
Share by me, I'll say to them.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you very much. All right.
Okay, so we have our final presenter for the afternoon. Honorable Dr. Ernest Tiller, Minister for Tourism, Investment, Creative Industries, Culture, and Information.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Should I take questions or I'll take questions? No, I'll take the question. I shall make a statement tomorrow in Parliament, a minister's statement in relation to the court case filed by the leader of the opposition. So you'll get a detailed statement made tomorrow, but do feel free to ask any question today. What I cannot say in Parliament, I'm sure.
Can you then speak to the meeting you had in London with the other CDI leaders? I think that'd be 2023.
Yeah, no, well, yeah. It was a dialogue hosted by the UK government, the EU, and the US with the countries in the Eastern Caribbean that do have citizenship by investment programs. Just cited the future of the CIP. And it was a very good dialogue. It really was an opportunity. Hosted at Wilton's Yard, which is an opportunity for free and open and frank dialogue. So a number of aspects to examine how to strengthen the programs, as well as some of the changes that can be made to ensure that the sustainability of the programs are ensured. The US, the UK, and the EU all, agreed to continue to work with their countries. We also discussed the role of the regional regulator, exactly what that person will be doing and the timelines to get that person in place. We spoke about a number of due diligence and national security issues or whatnot. So it was quite a good meeting.
Any help in terms of strengthening the due diligence?
Yes, the UK is going to be providing some technical support in terms of training of personnel within the various units to enhance their competencies in that regard.
We saw two of our local artists performing at the Raptors game. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it was excellent and certainly a plus for St. Lucia. As you know, right now in Canada, there are national concerns about the United States of America and the position of the United States towards Canada, and it has fueled a lot of debate and anxiety in Canada. Canada is a valuable source market for persons traveling to the United States of America. So therefore, it really created for us an opportunity for us to move into that space. Also, it's been a very brutal and bitter winter in Canada. And when we looked at our numbers for 2024, Canada was one of the markets that was a little soft for us still. We thought it was the ideal time for us to move into Canada and to have a major promotional campaign. And one of the ways in which we saw we could do so was to take advantage of Caribbean Heritage Night, hosted by the Toronto Raptors. It was a chance for us to promote our two leading soca artists, Moto and Ricky T. And from all accounts, they did a fantastic job. And so St. Lucia certainly stood up front. In fact, if you saw the posting from Moto, he basically said, look, 2 million more people now know of St. Lucia simply because of that opportunity. So we're really proud of what we've done. The promotion ended on Saturday night. And, it was quite successful. We now have to look and see, what the results will be. And of course, our numbers for last year, like we presented, showed that last year was our best year in terms of arrivals. And very soon, probably next week, I will release the numbers for January. And we continue to see growth, and we continue to see St. Lucia's tourism industry, showing remarkable resilience and success.
So while we saw what happened with, I guess, the Raptors, do you see our industry presently is difficult to speak with all our different artists? Do you see now that St. Lucia is a multi-billion industry that we can come together and within your ministry get our solutions, especially the artists, to know what is out there and give them the necessary what we say, the training, the tools, and our government to go out there to make the market even more, train them even better for that market to us from your side.
I mean, I think a little bit of that, a lot more of the artists themselves coming out of material, and we have had some good material out of St. Lucia, but you must remain trending. We have some excellent artists that can perform, at world-class standards. You just saw Moto and Ricky T. And there are a few more in St. Lucia that, and easily we can get a very sizable group of artists from St. Lucia to perform anywhere in the world. I'm confident of that. And together with the best from other countries. I know that for a fact. But of course, we need to ensure that the quality of the material remains, at the top. We have seen in the last, since post-COVID, a continuation of some of the good stuff in terms of the production of the carnival music in particular has really been good. And we have to encourage them to continue to do so, which is why last year we increased the prize money for carnival, for, soca, because we wanted the artists to be incentivized. And last couple of years ago, we offered fees for songwriters and songs that made it to the finals. The songwriters each got compensated for their writing, because we want writers to come out and write even more songs. And this year, I met with the soca representatives last week, and we discussed ways in which we can further support them, because at the end of the day, our soca music is what goes international, is what lives after carnival has ended. Our songs being played all over the world, and we want the soca artists to be able to put their best foot forward. So in addition to giving them opportunities like we just had, at the Raptors game, we also want to incentivize them and give them more support. We have another big engagement in August when we go to Expo in Japan. I think we'll be bringing quite a sizable delegation with us to Japan. I mean, you may recall when we went to Dubai a couple of years ago, and this time we'll have an even bigger delegation going to Japan to represent St. Lucia. And St. Lucia's Day is towards the ending of August. So we'll be putting on a presentation full of splendor and color and excitement and energy.
Do you think with the promotion of St. Lucia and our carnival that we are losing some of our locals on the road? Because we've seen a lot of the bands selling out pretty quickly, and some of the St. Lucians are not even getting a chance to buy their costumes.
Well, I've addressed this many times in here. There is a band for everybody. You can get a cheap band, cheap costume. Let me be very careful how I describe it before somebody say I call a band a cheap band. But there are costumes that are very reasonably priced, and there are expensive costumes. No St. Lucian can say that if they want to play mass, I shouldn't say no St. Lucian, the average mass can get a band where the costume is a lot cheaper than the high-end bands. I mean, put it that way. And so you have the Zuvos and the Just for Fans and the Legends and the Fusion. And you see the prices of their costume, and you're already saying sold out, sold out, sold out, sold out. But on the other hand, you have other bands that are a lot cheaper, a lot cheaper. And St. Lucians can, if they want, jump with those bands. But if you want to jump with Just for Fun, Frontline, you have to pay the cost of a costume for Frontline Just for Fun. So I think we have the full scale of options. We had a suggestion last year, which we wanted to do, which was to have the community carnivals come up and participate as community carnivals. But I didn't really get my way in pushing that idea, because some of the community carnivals wanted to come after the national carnival. And some of the revelers said, look, I'm already in a carnival band. So yes, I take part in community carnival, but I'm in, a regular carnival band. So, it's not going to work. This year we're hoping to put out on the road still ban on the road for Carnival. So at least St. Lucians who just want to go and have a little jump on the road without any costume, without any being in any band, should be able to do so. But we will continue to look at ways in which the average St. Lucian can participate in Carnival. We will continue to do so because it's in our interest to ensure that although the Carnival is becoming known now primarily for its international appeal and as an economic driver, that we also recognize the cultural and artistic value of it to our own social development in the country. So we will continue to look at ways and means in which we can make it open for greater participation.
I'm not sure if you saw the wax figure going around of Julian Alfred. What are your thoughts?
Well, I saw it, and I have both my personal and I guess in a sense the other side of it that you may ask somebody and they may say it's art. So and if an artist sees that as a representation of Julian, to some extent you must respect it. You may not like it, but you will respect it because it is an artist's impression. But there'll be different views on it. There will be different views, but art is art. And
Do you think-
you have a right. You have a right to reserve your views on it.
So do you think the one hopefully which will go up in cul-de-sac will be
Totally
much better?
different. I will not say much better, but I will tell you it will be totally different. That's for sure. Yeah.
I know recently, you and the, I guess, representatives from IDA had the engagement with the media and also the residents. I just had to have open communication so people have a better idea of what's going on, even on investigation. I'll take this out to GPH. We haven't been really hearing much, the media itself. So I guess what is happening with the project and how can we have this lines of communication, maybe an engagement like what you had.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. That's a good suggestion, and I will suggest to GPH that they make a presentation to the press. I know they're still working out the issues with DCA, so there might still be little minor alterations. But I think they've reached a point where they probably can share with the press the visuals of what it will look like. But there's a lot going on. So there's GPH dealing with DCA, dealing with approvals. There is the Castro City Council dealing with vendors. There is certainly in Banan, SLASPA dealing with the fishers and the people who live in the Banan fishing area. So there's a lot going on at the level of stakeholders, trying to address them and to speak with them. But I think the time has probably reached for you to get a presentation so you can get a sense of what it looks like.
Where were you DSH? I know they had there was supposed to be some mediation between the government and what's happening.
Well, I think DSH has gone silent. They filed a notice of intent for mediation, and we responded and we said, yes, we're ready. Go ahead. And we've just not heard from them. I think they're very conscious of the dates that are on us right now. I would say. Yeah. You get the answer?
Willing
Huh?
finance, willing.
Excuse me, so our CIP program seems to be under some heavy fire, even on the associate times, we have some problems there. I could read for you a little solution. CIP has been again put under scrutiny due to the alleged fraudulent operations in the citizenship industry. Agents from the industry are increasingly reluctant to work with the company and solution due to concerns and repetition and efficiency. Do you have any suggestions?
Well, I will in the House tomorrow deliver a minister's statement in relation to the article, not the article, but the matter that the article refers to, and that is the case brought by the leader of the opposition against the Central CIP. And let me be very clear on this, very, very clear. I have been through a lot from the leader of the opposition, the accusations from day one, and, he certainly made it very personal. I mean, in 2016, of course, I still won the seat. In 2021, I still won the seat, and the Labour Party won the elections. And he still continued. And he went after the Prime Minister, the Prime Minister's daughter. But there was something different in this filing. There was something slightly different. When you read his affidavit and all the statements he made, it is about St. Lucia suffering now. It's about destroying St. Lucia now. It's not about Ernest Hilaire. He's been down that road many times and he's lost. You know, he went after Philippe Pierre. Philippe Pierre got more popular. It's about St. Lucia. So there it is. He took a lot of what Martinez said, Martinez, his good friend, and filed a case in St. Lucia, almost repeating the things Martinez said. And then circulates it all over the world. So this is global. People hearing about St. Lucia. And he's going to court to make the court stop, listen to this, stop the infrastructure option and to revoke every citizenship given. He's asking the court to stop the Galaxy project, stop approving files for Galaxy, and revoke everybody who's gotten citizenship. Now, why would you want to do that? Why? So people out there now are hearing their citizenship probably will be revoked. What does that cause? Concern about St. Lucia, loss of faith in St. Lucia. That's what it's about. It's about destroying the reputation of St. Lucia. So you've not really destroyed Ernest Hilaire, you've not really destroyed Philippe J. Pierre, you've not really destroyed the Central Labour Party. Destroy St. Lucia now. That's all it's about. I read his statement and I just shook my head. I could not believe that somebody who wants to govern this country can get so desperate that it is about destroying St. Lucia, plain and simple. And I want you to take a moment and read it. It's about 40-something pages, but you know, it's not legal arguments. There's no legal arguments in it really. But when you read it, it's kind of long, but when you read it, you will just shake your head page by page and saying a lot of things that are untrue. But we'll deal with those things in court. What I want to focus on is, why do you want to destroy the infrastructure program? It's a simple reason. If the Labour Party is in a position to implement the infrastructure projects and develop the roads and bridges and community infrastructure, he will pay the price at the polls in his mind. So he needs to stop it. If he stops the Galaxy project and the program stops making money from government fees, then government revenue is affected. There's only one intent in this case, and that is to hurt St. Lucia and hurt St. Lucians. And I have no doubt in my mind about that. There is only one intent. And I believe as St. Lucians, and certainly in the coming weeks, we need to show clearly how we feel about what he intends to do. It's all about hurting St. Lucia. Because you're going to a court case, filing a case to virtually stop the country from being able to have a CIP program which brings benefit to the country. Why? What is going to happen that in your mind, you know, it is so necessary for you to stop it? So already you're seeing stories in St. Kitts that all the agents are running to St. Kitts. And I'm asking, which agents are running to St. Kitts? Where did that come from? And you hear in Associate Times speaking about St. Lucia program has fallen and people are moving away from St. Lucia. But that's the headlines they want all over the world, that the St. Lucia program is not a program to be associated with. When everybody knows we have been the torchbearers in terms of due diligence, in terms of management and process, and not just under us. I disagreed with some of the changes he made, but at no time would I stand up and say, no time, that in the management of the unit was there anything untold that we could point to. The management of the unit, I cannot, and I will be lying if I say so. I didn't agree with his changes. I didn't agree with the policies he had. But he really wants to destroy the program and destroy St. Lucia. That's what it's about.
The question I was petitions for us present with it and a long-term implications for someone causing that kind of problem, for both incoming and present government. Because you'll have to face that same music yourself.
Well, we in.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For incoming, outgoing.
Yeah.
But you understand my question? Right?
Well, the point is, I think there are some people who believe you can burn down the house and just rebuild it, and sometimes it doesn't happen. So you don't fraud the baby, with the bathwater and believe all will be okay. It doesn't happen that way. It doesn't. But I think in his mind, the only way to get to this government now is to suffocate it and stifle it and prevent it from making progress. Because he went after Philip J. Pierre. What did he do? Philip J. Pierre started smiling even more. And he said why he was smiling. He came after me repeatedly. Let me tell you, this is like 8 years of constant healer. I think he dreams of me now. And he keeps coming, but he's not broken me. You understand? So he will not give up. And this is probably his last desperate effort, but he'll make St. Lucians pay. And he'll make St. Lucia pay. That is what is sad about this. When you read his statements, it's about going after St. Lucia, going after the program and to hurt St. Lucia, hurt St. Lucians. So the pensioners will suffer. The public servants who got their back pay will suffer. The fishermen will suffer. The farmers will suffer. And very soon the Minister of Agriculture will be handing over, checks to farmers. So they will suffer. And then, the Prime Minister announced $1 million more to buy sports equipment. The young men will suffer. The Minister of Sports announced we'll have a semi-professional T20 league. That will suffer. That is his intent.
What about, recently Caribbean Galaxy did pledge some money's for
Oh, I think that annoyed them tremendously.
Is that going to be put on hold with what's...
Well, if he gets his way, everything goes on hold. That's what he wants. You're absolutely right.
What about the Caribbean, the Canals project, though? As it stands, before this whole court case comes through, where does it stand? What's happening there?
Well, I think the last report we got from them was that they had serious delays in terms of materials, local workmen, contractors, and they're thinking now of changing their mode of construction, maybe going more the way that Isla is going in terms of the approach that they use to that construction, which was something different. We had not done this in St. Lucia before, really. And they probably will change it. And we've asked them to submit to us a new work plan as to how quickly they're going to complete the project. But again, if they get their way, that too stops. Everything stops, really.
And the Rockall housing.
Everything stops.
What's happening?
We're waiting for the final DCA approvals.
The Prime Minister had made an but the BMAX was no longer the developer.
Yeah.
So who's the new developer?
Well, we actually looking for a new developer to take over the project. The Prime Minister has made it very clear that whether we get a developer or not, the project is going ahead, which means he's committing local CIP monies, to pay for it. But again, everything stops if he gets his way. In fact, he actually says so in his filing that the project must be stopped. So he's intent on stopping any and everything.
And outside of that, again, as you said, we're still getting the, interest in our CIP.
Yeah.
There is still interest. There's no issue in terms of people being concerned about all the allegations we saw from us.
Now that's a good.
What's the market like?
Now you see, that's a really good question. A very good question. So after the Martinez case, and that really affected us, and he joined with Martinez to hurt us, because everybody knew Martinez was really, outrageous in what he was saying. He didn't have nothing to do with St. Lucia. So why involve St. Lucia? But he was associated with Martinez, and St. Lucia became part of it. So it affected us. So we've taken the last few months planning for us to restore St. Lucia's image and reputation. And I think he probably sensed that St. Lucia was bouncing back. So just as St. Lucia is bouncing back, what do? You hurt it again. I tell you, it's a calculated effort, a very sadistic effort, to just hurt what is St. Lucian. I mean, it is, I mean, to just hurt St. Lucia. I mean, there seems to be an anger against St. Lucia and St. Lucians.
And the government planning to counter suit?
Well, I think the lawyers will deal with all the issues and deal with it in the most appropriate way.
But still, like you said, you were in England, right? And had to do due diligence with you.
No, a range of issues, including due
Right.
diligence.
So then, with what he's saying there, did that come up within there? Because obviously you said it's international movement challenge. Would that come up there also, and was it discussed?
Well, we discussed all aspects of the CIP. There was no focus on St. Lucia or on Dominica. We look at the industry.
Yes, but the negativity being, coming from the leader of the opposition.
Yeah, no. Those things were not discussed. I mean, the mechanics and the operations of the industry were looked at, not individuals. I don't think people would appreciate spending time discussing his actions. Yeah.
Yes. On another note, Mr. Minister, the entertainment issue, one of the burning issues has been solution. Putting up an entertainment center. The sports minister has every time we pass over, said the tourism minister. We've seen growth in our entertainment industry, like you see, St. Lucia is a festival country. Now, we use Pigeon Point a lot, like Yamaha, a lot. But then, the alternate venues, in terms of, making use of our sports, the VG field. What is in place now for St. Lucia still pushing ahead? To have a entertainment center, something fully, forum, comprehensive entertainment center, taking with local, regional, international artists, something, standard.
Well, I'll tell you something. It's something I had probably announced it here that we were going to look into it. I actually even got the concept drawings done for it, and in the cul-de-sac basin to locate an entertainment center. I was also hoping we would do it under the CIP to get a developer who would invest into it, pay the monies up front, and then get the money through the CIP program. So yes, we do. We still have plans to do so, and of course, government has priorities. A lot of resources are going into health, education, and even roads right now. So these are the big priorities facing the country. But as minister, I intend to pursue that agenda to make sure St. Lucia has a state-of-the-art, modern entertainment center that can host, mass crowd events for entertainment. Of course, let's see what happens, and where do we go from here.
And despite the underpinnings, things and whatever, we're still looking forward to a dynamic year of entertainment.
Yeah.
We have jazz and carnival, but it's still, St. Lucia is still in the forefront as an entertainment center.
Yeah, St. Lucia will grow this year as an entertainment center. There'll be a lot more happening this year. We're looking forward to it, and we certainly are in anticipation of jazz. This year for the community jazz events will increase compared to last year. We've added Miku. Babono is coming back on, so that will be an increase. Soufre is going to be fantastic. For Carnival, we're already seeing that this year will probably be bigger than last year. We really seen a lot of, interest in St. Lucia's Carnival for 2025. And we're still looking forward to it. And the Beach Festival in November will grow even bigger than last year. It was the first year last year. So I'm looking forward to a really exciting year. Journée Creole, very soon, there will be a consultation with Folk Research Center to look at Journée Creole and see how we can reignite Journée Creole and make it, even bigger than it has been. So I'm excited about the year ahead of us and looking forward to having an exciting year. And then we'll settle our business in the new year.